I had the Vikings laying the points and the under yesterday.
What was the line? 16.5?
16.5, yeah.
Yeah.
Which, is very unlikely, because obviously, but I didn't think the Skins would score that many.
Yeah,
but I got, $5.50.
Yeah.
And, of course, they get,
They were up 10 driving late, weren't they?
10, and they had 4 runs, in...
Oh, yeah, they even ran it.
They even ran it on the very last
down.
play, and I was like, fucking hell,
That's grim.
Absolutely grim. All right, well, let's do it. G'day, guys. Welcome once again to the Tripod, where we'll be breaking down every NFL game every week from a punting perspective. Pretty average week last week, but what you know about us is that we usually do bounce back after a poor week, so we'll be looking to do that this week. We've got 15 best bets on the cards for you guys, and we will be going through them shortly. Jacob, how are you, mate?
Well, I'm surprised 15 because it felt like we were pretty selective. Yeah, we had a good first week handicapping, game by game of the NFL because we only began in week 6.
Yep.
And then last week we got our butt kicked, and you can't even complain. We love to complain when we're on the wrong end of a coin toss or just a bad beat. I mean, we hitched our wagon to sides like the Seahawks that got outplayed, Chicago, who were awful. We had an under in a game where
Giants,
Aaron Rodgers has a career game. Yeah, and Giants, disappointing too. So our record's close to, 1 or 2 games below 50% at this point. So but we've gone back into the shop and we've got some good value plays to share out for week 8.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's started with the Cardinals plus 10 points at the New Orleans Saints. 48 points is the total. Slight lean here to the under. Not enough to get me on the side. People I think are maybe overrating the Cardinals a bit much after the last 3 games. They've obviously won 3 games in a row and they've put up 26 plus in all of them. But if you really look at the defenses that they've played, it's Bengals, Falcons, Giants. They would be all of those 3 would have to be in the bottom 10, if not bottom 5, some of those defenses in the league. This Saints defense is something else. It's going to be like nothing they've seen, especially over the last 3 weeks. And I think, despite the line being at the 10 and it looking juicy, you're probably not going to have David Johnson there. You're probably not going to have Christian Kirk there, one of your better receivers. But on the Saints side as well, I don't know if I'm ready to lay double digits with this Saints side, which still has Kamara questionable, and their tight end Jared Cook. Even though Drew Brees has a chance, they reckon, of coming back, I think they'll still leave him out. So no play for us on this one for now.
Should we be playing the Cardinals because of the omen that bird is cheeping like crazy? Is that your pet bird or is that one out the window? I don't know if you can do anything about that. So that is driving me crazy. I'm just guessing the listeners could feel the same.
I've closed the window and I'll tell you what it fucking is, mate. So obviously I'm deathly terrified of magpies, right? I got swooped as a child, hit in the head, all this sort of shit. And Ken's told me that magpies can remember 200 faces. So they remember who's been mean to them and they remember who's been nice to them. So I have, for the past 2 months, been making friends with a magpie family in my backyard so that they don't swoop me and they just live here now. So
that could be good advice. All right. Well, if you're friendly enough to ask them to just keep it down while we do a live pod, that'd be excellent. This game, I see a team that legit can win the Super Bowl. And we spoke about that the last few weeks, that nobody expected this level of play that we've got from the Saints since Brees gone out. We talk about what a step down that is at QB with Bridgewater, but they've still gotten it done, and they've gotten it done defensively. This is a great unit. So when Brees gets back and when Kamara's back on deck, this team's going to fire, and they've actually got the bye next week. So it's a pretty good situation for them, a home win. They're going to win this game easy regardless, of who exactly plays and how the game goes. They will get the win here. And then they can really build because Brees is, as you say, probably 50-50 to return. And he doesn't need to. No. It would make sense to me with a thumb injury where you can continue to rehab it and strengthen it and, make sure it's 100%. To not play this week, then you get the bye. Then you'd have, a full fortnight and then you'd definitely be good to go. So that's the real issue here. Whereas the Cardinals, people will look at them and say they're an average team. 3 wins, 3 losses and a draw. They're not an average team. The 3 wins are against sides that are a combined 3-18. I think you mentioned it. Shitty Giants,
Yep.
Shitty Falcons, shitty Bengals is your 3 wins. I know we faded the Zona last week, and the Giants were shitty that week. So I still don't believe in the Cardinals, so I'm not taking the plus 10.5. With the Saints, to me, it comes down to what's their mentality in this game. Do they come through and do just enough and still try and run the ball with Murray just to get out of it with a win? Or do they lay it all out because they've got the bye? And does Breeze come back and, see what he can do? So with that unknown, we're passing the game.
Yep, absolutely. And next up, we've got the Bengals plus 13 points. It'll say at the Rams, but it's actually over in London. This one, 48 is your total. Don't love anything in this game, really. I cannot possibly play the Bengals. They have been absolutely putrid. They've scored, I think, more than 17 points twice this season of 7 games. So the offense is putrid. The defense is putrid as well. But this Rams side, it's a confidence-boosting win last week for them against the Falcons. They really were struggling until they put up, 37 against the Falcons last week. And I guess the Falcons have been that kind of team this year, just kind of a confidence-boosting team that you can just get the win against. So I think the Rams certainly win this one, but I'm not about to lay double digits.
You know what we always say, but we haven't said it this NFL season. I mean, we do not lay many things. We do not lay women. We do not lay, double digits in the NFL. So there's a mantra that a sharp punter will have. It's dog or pass. Yep. So when you've got a double-digit line, you either can talk yourself into the underdog and say, yes, I believe they're, they're undervalued in the marketplace and therefore there is line value, or I'm passing the game because you hate. The problem is you take you said minus 13, but you can get minus 12.5 on the Rams.
Yep.
They can be dominating the game. They can be winning the game by 20 points or by 19 points and get backdoored. You see it all too often. The game changes so much when it's, beyond a 2-score game. So there's in that regard, do I like the Bengals? No, for the same reason you said. They're so bad, they give you no confidence. And the Rams, we spoke about how they might have turned the corner in their season. They've traded for Jalen Ramsey. They got that confidence-boosting win. They're all in for this season, so I expect the Rams will win the game, but I'm not laying that number of points.
Yeah, for sure. And you said it. It's exactly what happened, let's say, yesterday, for example, with the Vikings game. The line was 16.5. They're up 10 late. They drive all the way to the red zone, have multiple chances at getting a touchdown, but they don't need it. So, and that would have got.
Yeah, and there was no doubt in our minds that the Vikings would win yesterday. And if you said to the Vikings, you need to win by 17 or more to make the playoffs, if the favorite wants to win by a big margin, they often can, but the game theory changes when you're up. You go conservative. People want it. It's a little bit different to rugby league in that way, where in rugby league, if a team gets up 20, sometimes it's an avalanche and they continue to pile on the scoring. But in NFL, you'll find that a team could be down 20-0 at halftime and they'll be the favorite to win the second half.
Yeah, exactly. One good thing that came out of yesterday was we did cash our only multi that we gave out on the game, an $8 same game multi. So keep your eyes and ears peeled to the Tripod app. We'll be releasing a few more of those throughout the weekend. Next up, Broncos plus 5 at the Colts. 43 points is the total. Initially, I looked at this line and I thought it seems like a shortish line. Yes, the Colts are better. Yep, I need to edit that. Thank you for that, Zane. I just need to edit in first half of that one. Okay. Now that we've got that sorted. Yes, the Colts are better than the Broncos here, but and the Colts, look, maybe they are legit with Jacoby Brissett there, but this is just a situational spot play. I think the Broncos coming off the Thursday game, getting absolutely embarrassed in prime time. They have to show up here, and the Colts get the big win over their division rival in the Texans. Everyone was watching that one too, so I think. Although the Colts are good, I think they're coming into this game a little bit overrated. And look, the Broncos people could not be any lower on them at the moment. I know that you have Joe Flacco and he's absolute garbage. He's filth. But this is the spot that you just take the ugly duckling, the ugly dog, and hope that they can put in a half-decent effort.
Yeah, you talk about Colts being legit. I mean, think about it. The Colts right now should be making the playoffs. If you consider the Patriots and the Bills, I think, can both get into the playoffs.
Yep.
In the AFC North, I'd probably only put the Ravens in right now. Sure, the Browns will be sniffing around, but I'd say just the Ravens from that division. In the Chiefs division, the Chiefs would be the only team I'd have making the playoffs. So yes. I don't quite believe in the Raiders yet.
And the Chargers are two on.
So then you look at this division, the AFC South. I mean, you'd expect that the Texans and the Colts both get in, and the Colts beat the Texans last week, and they are better than the Broncos. And of all the players we're sharing, this is the player I hate the most. I don't like the Broncos, and I don't think they're going to win this game. But the market is telling us, we've shopped around, and 3 being a super key halftime, margin of lead. We're getting 3.5 on a team that's only like a 4.5 point underdog.
Yes.
And we get the 10 days to prepare, and we'll know what to make of the Broncos rest of their season by their first half performance. Because if they can't come out and compete, after being so horrendously embarrassing at home against a Mahomes-less Chiefs,
yes.
then why are they playing in the NFL? So we'll see how they go. Because they're not a class below Indy, but I do think Indy probably gets them in this game. But let's hope Denver can keep it at least close first half.
So fucked that this is the first best bet of the round, and it is such an ugly best bet. We are taking the Broncos plus 3.5 points in the first half. That one is $1.85 on Bet Easy. Next up, we got the Chargers plus 3.5 points at the Bears. 41 points is the total. Well, at the start of the season, this game didn't look too fucking bad. Chargers at Bears. 2 very good teams, 2 above average teams, but how things have changed. The Chargers have just been absolutely woeful recently, and I worry about the Chargers' state of mind because I think that, what are they now, 2-5 maybe, going into this one, and that game last week against the Titans, they had it. They had multiple shots at the end zone right at the end of the game, and then Melvin Gordon fumbles at the goal line with 19 seconds left, and they lose that one. Is that the dream crusher for their season? That's what I worry about with the Chargers. Also, the fact that their best receiver, and pretty much only receiver, Keenan Allen, is coming into this one banged up and may not even play. So, but on the Bears side, just an absolutely embarrassing performance against the Saints last week. As Jacob said earlier, we were on the Bears, expected better things from them at home. So both sides, you can make a case for both sides in the fact that, Chargers should have won last week, so they're probably coming in a little bit undervalued. And on the Bears side, they've just got absolutely pumped. So do they draw a line in the sand here and say this is it for our season and at home? So it's just a really ugly game, and I don't really have a lean to either side. I guess gun to my head, I would probably take the Chargers with the hook.
Interesting, yeah, gun to my head, I'm taking the Bears. They're both sides you don't really want to bet on, or based on what you've seen in season 2019, they're sides that give you no confidence. It's not even just that Melvin Gordon fumbled at the one. If you watch that Chargers game against the Titans last week, it was just a classic Chargers loss, and they got a stop on 4 and they got the ball. They were down 3 and driving. They were at the minimum going to get a field goal, but they got to the 1 yard line, the Titans 1 yard line. At that point, you're not thinking, let's get a field goal, let's get to overtime and have a 50-50 chance. You're punching it in, and they got across, or they got called a touchdown, and they're celebrating, and then it was reviewed and overturned, and they said it's an inch short. Then they ran it, and you couldn't tell if they were across the line or not, and they were all celebrating a touchdown. It got reviewed. It was called short. I think they then ran it again and got stuffed, and I think it was about the 4th. Or then they got backed up 5 yards. Then they got a pass interference call that put them back on the 1 again. It was a crazy game. The final 40 seconds took half an hour.
Yeah, because I'll ask you one thing. It was second down, I'm pretty sure, when Melvin Gordon fumbled. And there was, I think, 30-something seconds on the clock at that point. They don't have any timeouts left. I'm throwing it there. I'm throwing it twice, and then I'm kicking a field goal. There's no 2 ways about it.
What you do, you throw it twice because you either score from a 1 yard pass, you get 2 plays, or it's incomplete.
Yep.
And on 4th down, I'm actually running it because I figure I've got a better chance of converting a 1 yard play than I do to kick a field goal and then win in overtime. True. But you're right, they've mucked up their game. Anyone who's ever played Madden knows that. So they fucked up completely, and now you wonder, what's their mentality into this one? But on the Bears side of things, everything was set up for them after a bad performance in London, then the bye, you come home, you play the Saints with a backup QB without Kamara, and they were horrendous. And don't even look at that final score against the Saints and think that they were within 11 points or whatever the final was, because they got a kickoff return and they scored 2 different touchdowns that were garbage in the 4th quarter, where the Saints were dead set playing prevent with their backup
lost by way more than
defenders.
11.
And the Bears even recovered an onside kick that was meaningless in that game. They were so bad, and I actually think Trubisky on offense is so horrendous, it takes life out of the fans and it takes life out of the defense.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
The defensive effort by the Bears, which should be a really good unit, although you were telling me about how since Akeem Hicks is out in the middle, it has made a difference and they're not as formidable as they have been. But they were disappointing last week too against, as I said, the Saints are undermanned on offense. There was no excuse for letting the Saints score, above 30 points.
Yep.
So you wonder if these teams, if this, after being embarrassed, they come out with a huge performance, or if they know deep down, they're not going to make the playoffs this year. Bears won 12 games last year. Actually, so did Chargers, if not 13.
13, I
and
think.
Both these teams are going to have bad years this year. So you're questioning, the confidence and the mentality of these sides. And ultimately, that's why we can't feel strongly enough to find a best bet.
And to be fair, maybe the player's just the fucking under. No Keenan Allen, the Chargers will run it. They don't trust Trubisky, the Bears will run it, so fuck.
Well, Keenan Allen's questionable, isn't he? And that's the thing. If teams have given up too, sometimes it shows on the defensive end as well. Like, as I mentioned,
True.
Why did the Bears give up over 30 points to Teddy Bridgewater last week? So
embarrassing.
Yeah.
Next up, a game that we do like. It's the Giants plus 6.5 points at the Detroit Lions. 49.5 is the total. So we had high hopes for the Giants last week against the Cards, but they dig themselves into a 17-zip hole. And then were by far the better team, I thought, throughout the rest of the game. Had a chance to tie it up late. Couldn't do it. But, overall, I thought the Giants were probably better, just apart from getting, into that early hole. The Lions, on the other hand, played decently against the Vikings, but the Vikings were just on fire. And look, the Lions are coming into this one a little bit banged up, obviously. Some injuries to the offensive and defensive side. Now, Kerryon Johnson goes on IR, so you lose your gun running back. So they're going to have to lean on the pass a little bit more here. But the Giants, look, I think this line is just probably a bit too high for me. The Lions are probably still the slightly better team, but getting a full touchdown with the Giants off, a loss where they could have easily won that game, I think that this line should be much closer than it is currently.
Yeah, we had our reasons why we liked the Giants last week, and a big one was the return of, Saquon Barkley to partner up with Danny Dimes, and who else came back? Evan Ingram was back, right?
Evan Ingram back. You missed Sterling Shepard for this one, but at least you have a few other receivers that weren't there.
We've mentioned Golden Tate is there now, and so this is why we liked him. But as you say, a terrible start in that game, and then turnovers late in what could have been a close game. I mean, they were down 24-21, for example, against the Cardinals, and we had the Cardinals under 24.5. So even though the Cardinals were going to win that game, we would have won that bet. Yep. But ridiculous play calling by the Giants. It was 3rd and 18, and they went for a running play, made 4 yards. They still had 2 timeouts and the 2-minute warning. You punt the ball there, down 3. You get a stop, and you can get a field goal. And they went for it on 4th and 14 on their own 20, which of course then meant that Arizona got a cheap 3 points. So that killed us there. But these reasons we had to take the Giants last week, they're still there this week, ultimately. So we think they have a chance. And for the Lions, disappointing loss last week. You mentioned a few of the injuries. Johnson's a huge one. Snacks Harrison, I think, is out. And the big thing as well, the reason I love fading the Lions this week is trading away their defensive captain in Diggs. And that was a shocker in that locker room. And obviously, the Ravens gave him an offer they couldn't refuse. But that's pretty much, I don't want to call it a white flag on the season, but why are you trading away one of your key defenders, mid-season, unless you've got an eye towards the future and you're not, fully serious about your prospects this year? And it's definitely disgruntled a lot of, members of that locker room about, well, how seriously are we taking this year? So that's a question mark too. So for that reason, I really like the Giants to at least keep it close in Detroit this week.
That bullshit Packers loss just drove a fucking knife into the heart of the Lions season. We're taking 3 best bets on the Giants for this one. We're going to take plus 7 points for the game. That one's $1.84 on Unibet. We're going to take the Giants team total over 20.5 points. That one's also on Unibet at $1.87. We're going to take the Lions team total under 30 points. That's $1.80 on Bet365 in the 3-way market. Next up, the Jets plus 6.5 points at the Jags. 40.5 points is the total. Well, this is not only a situational spot, but I just do think that these teams are a lot closer together than people realize. I know people are kind of heaping shit on the Jets after last week just getting pummeled by the Patriots, not just getting absolutely donutted 33-zip. But, this Jets team isn't that bad. This Pats defense is historic. And, they just kind of got into a hole there, and Sam Darnold lost all confidence. And, when you get 4 picks and, 4 interceptions and I think 2 pick sixes, it's very, very tough to win the game. So, not that I'm going to cross a line through that one, but this Pats D is completely legit. So, it is a good bounce back spot for the Jets. We've seen what Darnold can do, the week before against the Cowboys. And this Jags team, look, I know they get the win over the Bengals last week, like not very convincing necessarily, but Minshew, he came out of the blocks very, very hot, but he hasn't been as great lately, and I just think that this Jags side, are they really that much better than this Jets outfit? Plus, we're getting probably a bit of a public overreaction here with the Jets getting donutted by the Pats. So I expect a bounce back here from the Jets. They probably still do believe in their season and will want to put in a good performance in this one. So I think the line is just a tad high for me.
Yeah, I see it the same way. Like Jacksonville, you can say they've put the shit behind them. They got rid of Ramsey, who was kicking up fuss, and they go and, it was a close game at Cincinnati last week, and then they got a late, I think, pick six as well, which puts the score. They win by 10 or 11 points in the end, and maybe they rebuild now and they're confident. And we like Minshew. I think people were overrating maybe how good he was, calling him, the second coming of Jesus and all that. But sometimes when a new QB comes in like a backup, and the opposition defensive coordinator's got no tape on them and don't know what they're going to do, they can actually have success in the first couple of weeks. And maybe teams have figured him out. Like, that is a real thing that happens in the NFL. With the Jets, like, I agree that I think they're underrated because Sam Darnold missed a month and they had a couple other players injured as well. And, like CJ Mosley injured in the opener. He was back last week. And you look at Darnold, he's only started 3 games this year, and it's against the Bills defense, the Dallas defense, and the Pats defense. 3 pretty good defenses, and he did fine against Dallas. And they had a 16-point lead against the Bills too. So I'm not going to put a line through the Jets for getting spanked on Monday night. How funny was it? I mean, they got destroyed, as you said, bad to worse. He'd throw a pick. Patriots will score. All right, go back out there, head up. We'll score next drive. We'll get back in the game. And then he was under pressure, and it was scoreboard pressure, and the Pats were blitzing him. Like Belichick was giving him nightmares, and he was mic'd up, what they call the Monday night mic, and you could hear him on the sideline saying, "I'm seeing ghosts out there," basically admitting he was completely spooked, and he was like, like getting scared of shadows because he, the clock was going so fast in his head when he was in that pocket, he did not feel protected. So,
and he's not the only one. The Pats have done this to everyone.
And this is
season.
what people need to realize. The Patriots, on any given night, can make anyone look terrible. So let's not put a line through the Jets. Let's believe, actually, it's a sneaky good defense. I alluded to, like, Mosley back in this team. Who's the safety that's killing Jamal Adams is killing it this year. They got Quinnen Williams on the defensive line, Leonard Williams as well. So I like the pieces in the Jets team. And while they've only got 1 win all year, they do have a very favorable schedule the next 9 or 10. So look, it's probably out of reach to make the playoffs, but you've got a new coach, you've got Darnold back. Like, they want to build some positivity. There's always a lot of noise in New York and a lot of criticism. They want to silence that. I think they come out. And once again, we're getting like a touchdown underdog. They don't have to win. They just got to keep it close.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got 3 best bets on this one as well. We're going to take the Jets plus the 7. That one is $1.83 on Unibet. You're going to take the Jags team total under 24.5 points. That one is $1.80 on Bet365. And staying on Bet365, we'll take the Jags plus 3.5 points. Sorry, the Jets. I've written that wrong. The Jets plus 3.5 points in the first half. That one is $1.95. Yes, thank you, Lachlan. That is meant to be the Jets plus 3.5 points in the first half. Or if you can get the Jags plus 3.5 at $1.95, you probably would take it. Next up, the Eagles plus 2.5 points at the Bills. 43.5 points is the total. I guess the Eagles are definitely the sharp side here, right? You have just coming off an absolute obliteration against the Cowboys. I don't think many people kind of saw that one coming, but whenever you get a team that gets absolutely pulverized in prime time, especially a standalone game, that sticks in the public's minds for sure. So I don't think anyone's rushing to the window to bet the Eagles this week. Meanwhile, the Bills are quietly 5-1. They've had their bye, I guess, 5-1. So just quietly keep racking up the wins, but they haven't played a terribly difficult schedule. And I mean, you get the win over the Dolphins last week by 10 points. I wouldn't take too much out of that. I think they pretty much did enough to just win that one.
Well, they were losing in the second half of that game.
That's true. Well, they were down at halftime, I think.
They needed a goal line turnover to get back on top in that one.
And look, I wouldn't take too much out of it because sometimes you do just get those teams that like kind of overlook the Dolphins because they are so absolutely horrific. But look, I think this is a good spot for the Eagles to bounce back. I understand that the Bills have a very good defense, but the Eagles have got to click here. And after a really embarrassing performance last week, I do expect a bounce back spot here.
Yeah, the Eagles are a very hard side to evaluate. We've spoken for, the 3 weeks that we've done this pod about how they're depleted at secondary. They do get Maddox back, which will help, at cornerback there. And we knew that the Cowboys could definitely exploit that weakness, and they ultimately did. And the only reason we weren't on the Cowboys last week on Sunday Night Football is all the offensive players that were questionable, but they all played, and the Cowboys pulverized them. And look, here's a feeling I got out of that game that I can't quantify, but just the way I felt when I watched that game. Dallas got out to an early 14-point lead, and I almost feel like Peterson, the Eagles coach, knew deep down it was going to be a big mountain to climb to come back and beat Dallas, and I felt like he played a little bit reserved and he played a little bit vanilla after that and felt like this one might be lost. We're still a little down on troops. We're playing a fired-up Dallas that needs the win. They're at home and they're playing really well. And I felt like he kept a little bit up his sleeve, and he might show that this week in a very winnable game and a very important game for their season. I mean, of course, last week was more important being a divisional game, but my point is that was a much tougher one to win, and they got in an early hole. I think this is the week where they can beat a Bills side where, as you say, has 5 wins, but show me the impressive win in all of that. Like they've beaten up on some sides and they've won some close games, and I like the Bills this season, but I think this is a week where this Philly team, of course, we all know, won the Super Bowl, 18 months ago?
Yes.
Last year made the playoffs, and this year was favourite to win their division. That's still that same roster that should be too good and probably can win this game. And we didn't get a great line, but we've found a pretty good team total. So we do lean Eagles, and we're going to play this team total bet.
Yeah, for sure. And look, if you guys are looking around and can find an Eagles +3, we would certainly play that. We just couldn't find it. So we've gone instead with the Eagles team total over 20 points flat. You can find that one at $1.88 on both Neds and on Ladbrokes. Next up, a game that probably looked great at the start of the season and now not so much. It's the Seahawks laying 6.5 points at the Atlanta Falcons. 53 points is the total. Well, the Seahawks last week, we were on them. Thought it was a good spot for them. Thought they were a better side at home. And look, to be honest, the Seahawks didn't do much wrong. Lamar Jackson was just a fucking machine. Over 100 yards rushing. And he dead set won that game single-handedly for them multiple times, where they had, I think they had 3rd and 18. He runs himself for 12 yards or something, or 14. Then fucking runs it on 4th down, gets a touchdown. He was just superhuman in that one. So I don't take too much away from the Seahawks. But in saying that, I guess it makes them a little bit tastier this week because they lost last week. With the Falcons, we've been saying this for a couple of weeks now that this season is done. They're completely out of it. They've only won 1 game this year and, just getting spanked by the Rams. So, look, do I expect a good performance from the Falcons at home? I don't know. I don't know if they've just completely given up on their season or if they'll actually try here. But what I do know is I'm getting a full effort out of the Seahawks. And, Matt Ryan's status still up in the air. They're saying that he's going to be a game-time decision. But honestly, why would you put him in there? It's an ankle injury. Your season's going nowhere. So I would expect him not to play. And look, if he doesn't play, I like this line under the 7. And even if he does, there's certainly a decent chance that the Seahawks still absolutely pulverize them.
Yeah, the Seahawks can't muck around here. They're a legit they're in the playoff picture, or at least right on the fringe there. At the moment, it looks like the 49ers are going to be winning that division, which people wouldn't have picked. But you've still got the Rams, also in that division fighting for a wild card, as are several teams in the NFC. A lot of good teams in the NFC are going to miss the playoffs the way that it's shaping up this year. So you can't muck around. You mentioned the Seahawks. They have a good defense. I like their defensive unit, but Lamar Jackson was just too good.
Joke.
I don't think anyone would have stopped him last week. On top of that, Russ Wilson throws a pick 6 and stuff. The Ravens probably had their best defensive performance last week. Getting Peters in seemed to help. So you're right. We're getting a Seahawks side that's coming off being made to look below average on both sides of the ball. That's not the case, and they should show that here. And, of course, the beauty you alluded to, Matt Ryan injured last week, couldn't play on. Look, a high ankle sprain, it doesn't recover in a week. So he either plays and he's hampered, in which case maybe his teammates lift and say, look at this guy's a warrior. He's coming out and gutting it out. I'm worried about that a little bit. But if he does, as you kind of say, I still think the Seahawks win and they can easily still win by a touchdown. If he doesn't play, we've got a guy called Matt Schaub starting for the Falcons. And if you've ever watched that guy play, and if you've ever been unfortunate enough to ever bet on a team that he was quarterbacking, as I have in numerous heart-wrenching losses when he was the QB back at the Texans, when it was more likely he would throw a touchdown to the defense than it would be to his own team. You're not gonna hesitate laying any number with the Seahawks if we get Matt Schaub in this game. So I think I put Matt Ryan at less than 50% to play in this game, and then we've got a great bet in that circumstance.
Maybe it's just because I'm not an elite athlete like Matt Ryan, but I sprained my ankle nearly a week ago, and it is fucked. It's fucking purple and black and swollen as fuck, and this is 6 days ago. So I do. You're
still talking about your ankle?
It's true. It is grim, mate. I'll send you a picture later of my ankle. We're going to take the Seahawks minus 6.5 points. That one is $1.88 on Unibet. Let's get to this. I told Jacob this is my favorite play of the round. We've got the Bucks plus 2.5 points at the Tennessee Titans. 45.5 points is the total. A couple of reasons I do like the Bucks here. First of all, we've got the Titans team coming off a bullshit win over the Chargers. Like I kind of said, they had no business winning that one. So, the line would be slightly different, I believe, if the Titans did lose that one, which they easily could have. On the other hand, you got the Bucks coming off the bye. That's worth something. And I do like betting on a team off the bye that's in contention when they lost the week before and lost to the Panthers 2 weeks ago. You have the bye, so you're a bit more focused in training. But what I like the best is just the matchup here. So the Bucks and the Titans both are great against the run and below average against the pass. I mean, Football Outsiders, who are my trust with their DVOA rankings, still have the Buccaneers as the number one rush defense in the NFL. So the matchup-wise, the Bucks can stop the run, and the Titans, all they want to fucking do is run the ball with Derrick Henry. But on the flip side, the Bucks, they're a bit more balanced this year, but what they really want to do is pass, and I think they'll be smart enough to realize that they can pass on this Titans side and not necessarily run. So I think the matchup is great for this Bucks side, plus we're catching the 3. I really like this bet. I think the Bucks, as dogs, get the outright win.
Yeah, 3 is a good number. It's funny. It's the draft about 7 years ago, so it was either 2012 or 2013. The two franchise QBs of these sides in Jameis Winston and Mariota went 1 and 2.
Yeah.
And then you would have had these two going head to head, and that could have been the headline of this game. But of course, Mariota got benched, a week ago, and Jameis Winston's off 5 intercepts in the London game, and he's probably thinking to himself, couple more bad performances and I'll be in the same shoes as Mariota. So maybe he's got one last chance to kind of get his act together. Arians gives him a pretty long leash. Arians wants him to air it out and wants to put confidence in him. And Arians has a history of getting the most out of limited QBs. So I like that as well. I think he's a good coach. For me, the jury's still out on whether Vrabel's a good coach, and they did get out of jail. It was as much about the Chargers losing that game. We already spoke about that last week. So I'm with you as well. I think also the fact that the Buccaneers lost in London, but Carolina's a very good team, especially defensively, kind of made them look probably worse than what they really are. And yeah, I think the Buccaneers are the better side in this one, and we're getting the field goal, so it's the right side to be on.
Indeed, and I think it's hard to argue that the Titans actually have a 3-point home field advantage in this one. So we're going to take the Bucks plus 3 points for the game. That one is $1.81 on Unibet. We're also going to take the Titans team total under 24.5 points. You'll find that one on BetEasy at $1.85. Next up, the Panthers plus 6 points at the 49ers. 42.5 points is the total. Oh, well, the 49ers just keep rolling. I know it was an ugly win last week against the Skins, but that was just torrential downpour. But they just keep winning, and they haven't lost this year, and have been probably the surprise of the NFL, really. But the Panthers coming off the bye is a pretty good spot for them. More than anything, I think, it's tough to take the 6 or 6.5 with the Panthers, because I think it's just a bad matchup for them. The 49ers are, they're great defensively. You can run on them slightly. You can't really pass on them. But in terms of the 49ers, I don't know if the Panthers are going to be able to stop the 49ers. All they do is run. and the Panthers are below average, bottom 5 against the run. So what I think, the way I see this game playing out, is the 49ers are the better team here. They're at home. I think they are going to be able to run on this Panthers side. I think they are going to be up in this game, so they'll keep running. That's going to keep the clock churning, and that's why I like the under. I just don't think the Panthers are going to be able to stop the run in this one, and I just can't see the Panthers scoring too many points on this 49ers defense that is completely legit, arguably the best D in the league.
Yeah, you do get this from time to time, like each season. You get these teams that are just have a really fierce defense and a really strong run game, and you can't go too wrong betting unders in those games because it's very hard to score against them, and when they've got the ball, they chew the clock. And the Panthers have Christian McCaffrey. We've spoken about previous pods that he's in the MVP discussion. So when your best player is your running back, you want to lean on the run as well.
Yes.
They've got an undrafted QB in Kyle Allen who's come in and done a good job taking over from Cam Newton. He's also looked even better because Cam Newton was so injured and stuff. But have you heard this about Kyle Allen? So undrafted, and he's got really small hands, they're saying, measurably, he's got quite small hands. And he's got 6 fumbles in all of his starts in about 5 starts or something. So you wonder if, I think there's even an audio clip of him getting sacked and fumbling the ball and coming off the field going, "It's not my hands, it's not my hands." So it's like, it's a thing. The people calling him the flipper and stuff. So look, him going up against this 49ers defense, that's a matchup I'm worried about. That's another reason why I like the under, as is the fact, a unit that doesn't get spoken about as much, but the Carolina Panthers defense, led by Luke Kuechly, that's actually an elite unit that I think can also suppress the 49ers, at least with their big plays. So to me, although it's a low number, it's low for a reason. We still like the under.
Indeed, we're taking a couple of plays on the under in this one. We're going to take under 43 for the game. You'll find that one at $1.83 in the Bet365 alt total markets. And we're going to take under 21 in the first half. That one is $1.83 as well on Bet365. Next up, a game that should have been more competitive if you looked at this one at the start of the season. It's the Browns plus 12.5 points against the Patriots. 45.5 points is the total. I do wonder what this line would have been pre-season. I do not think it would have been 12.5 or even double digits probably. But the Browns have just been very disappointing this year. Everyone kind of saying Baker Mayfield's not up to scratch, and he has been. He has been a little bit inaccurate here. But I think this is the week where the Browns actually do show up. Not only do you have them off the bye, which I like, but you have them off the bye and off a loss in the previous week. So I think they should be more focused during that off week. Whereas the Pats, I don't know if you can say they come in overrated because they are completely legit. But they do come in slightly overrated, I guess, off a 33-0 win over the Jets, where you get a couple of defensive scores, 4 interceptions. So they looked extremely good there. But look, I expect max effort here from the Browns. The Pats, although they're very, very legit, you still Edelman's questionable for this one, which doesn't help. Josh Gordon's gone to IR. I know that you get Mohamed Sanu coming over from the Falcons, but all these things kind of, they add up. And I just think, at double digits, it's probably too high of a line. And I really do expect a good effort here from the Browns. I think they'll be much improved off the loss and off the bye.
Yeah, talk about this game pre-season would have looked like a really appealing matchup. Am I wrong? When Odell Beckham got traded to the Browns, and obviously all this money got put on the Browns for futures, people were super optimistic. I think the Browns were third favourites in the AFC, behind only the Pats and the Chiefs. So, this was meant to be a matchup of AFC contenders. But the Browns, we've spoken about before, they're so unpredictable in any given week. They can be they're rocks or diamonds. Off a bye, I do really like the Browns coming into this one. The fact that they have dealt with a lot of injuries in the secondary, they've played games without 4 starters across safety and cornerback, and you get a few people back for this one. That will help. At least, as you say, the Patriots actually aren't winning these games with offense. Yeah, and you said something to me before the pod too, as good as the Pats are, and we recognizing them as, one of the best defenses that we've seen in the last decade, and certainly maybe the best defense in the league, although the 49ers are putting up historic numbers too. But it's unsustainable to get multiple intercepts every game. Yes. So, you can't expect that. And some of those intercepts are leading directly either to touchdown, literally return touchdowns, or short fields and touchdowns. So that's helping the Pats scoring. So if they can't rely on that every week, they're not going to be scoring, over 30 every week. And in fact, Belichick doesn't even try to score if he gets up big late.
Yes.
You saw the shenanigans he was getting up to in the Monday Night Football game against the Jets.
Hilarious.
He feels, more pride in the fact they've conceded 3 touchdowns in 7 weeks. So you're seeing a low-scoring games because the Browns do have a good defense, like especially up front as well. Myles Garrett, he was trying to put his name in Defensive Player of the Year discussions, and they do have playmakers there. And they also want to run the ball with Nick Chubb, right? So I think that the Browns can come in and they can. Yeah, they're going to come in with an edge because that's like the personality of this team. And, Baker Mayfield's the leader and they're cocky and they're not going to come in and be shy. And I think that they can keep it close. And, with 2 pretty good defenses as well, you're not expecting a ton of points.
Well, even you saw like Lev Bell was able to, I know they got shut out last week, but Lev Bell was able to run it a little bit on the Pats and Nick Chubb's been awesome this year. So, look, we think the Browns can hang. So we're going to take them plus 7 points in the first half. That one's $1.86 on Bet365. And staying on Bet365, we're going to take the Pats under 29.5 points. That one is $1.83. Next up, the Raiders plus 6.5 points at the Texans. 51.5 points is the total. I guess I would say the Raiders have been like one of the surprises of the season as well. They've been certainly exceeding expectations of most people. I know, most people watched Hard Knocks and probably said like this Raiders team is fucked, but they have somehow, they're somehow playing good footy and like they lost. I know they lost to the Packers last week in what looks like a relative blowout, but that is by far the best game that Aaron Rodgers has had this season. Might be even his best game that he's had ever
in the past 5 years.
Few years, like 5 touchdowns, a rushing touchdown. But even so, the Raiders were able to put up 24 points against this Packers defense that is certainly top 10 in the league. On the flip side, you have the Texans off a pretty disappointing loss, but the Colts, like we said, they have been completely legit. We've also said that the Texans would struggle last week. We were on the Colts because the Colts get a good pass rush. The Raiders will not be able to get as good of a pass rush on the Texans as the Colts did last week. That's going to give Deshaun Watson a bit more time to throw. And look, you can throw on both of these teams. The Texans, you can certainly throw on, as we saw last week with Jacoby Brissett. And the Raiders are the same thing. You can't run on them that well, but the secondary, you can certainly air it out. So I expect both teams to come into this one and throw the ball. That leads to, less time coming off the clock and hopefully more points, especially because the Raiders running back, Josh Jacobs, is coming into this one with the shoulder injury. He's kind of 50-50 whether he's going to go or not. If he doesn't go, obviously they're going to have to pass more. And even if he does play, I think they're going to not want to. They're probably going to have to pass more anyway, just not putting his shoulder in harm's way. So I like this one to be a shootout.
Yeah, and the total might seem high, but again, it's high for a reason. You got like Deshaun Watson really showing that he's one of the premier QBs in the competition and at home and against like not really a scary pass rush of the Raiders. I agree. I think that with the receiving weapons he's got, he'll put up plenty of points off a loss last week. And for the Raiders, like this was a make or break season for Derek Carr, and he's done well. Like whether he's doing a lot better against pressure than he has in previous years where he's been horrible against pressure. Now he's dealing with it better. Like you got to give some credit maybe to Gruden because as you say, we did not expect a lot coming into the season, but they've well and truly outplayed expectations. And also Derek Carr getting the ball out of his hands quicker. And my one concern was they do want to feed Josh Jacobs, but as you know, you're obsessed with your fantasy team, so you've got your ear to the ground with every bit of player personnel news, and that's great because it helps your handicapping regular games, knowing that the best information you can about key players in key skill positions. And on top of that, the Raiders defense have lost a couple of players. So it all kind of points to I was going to say as well, like, don't forget that Derek Carr fumbled through the end zone last week against the Packers. They could have had even more points. Yeah. That was a 14-point swing too. So Oakland Raiders overachieving on offense for sure. So let's take the over in this game. Should be fun.
It's always fun to cheer for an over, and we rarely take it. So we're doing one here. We're going to take the over 51 points. You'll find that one at $1.80 in the Bet365 alternate handicap market, or alternate total market, sorry. Next up, what a disappointment. We got the Packers minus 3.5 points at the Kansas City Chiefs with a total of 48 points. And this would have been the sickest game if Pat Mahomes was actually going to play this one. This would have been the game of the fucking year. The total would have been like 55.5 points or something. Aaron Rodgers coming off 5 touchdowns, a rushing touchdown, playing against Pat Mahomes. But unfortunately, it's not to be. Pat Mahomes will be out for this week, though he was relatively close to going. Just this morning, they announced that he will not be playing this one. So it's going to be Matt Moore again, who is, an average backup. Thing is, with this Chiefs side, I was listening to something, and it's like, it's not that much of a downgrade for this Chiefs side when you go to a backup QB, just because of their roster. You have dudes like Tyreek Hill. You have dudes like McCall Hardman that can just create space. They're so fast. So when you can get separation like that, it does make it a little bit easier for a backup QB to come in there and actually find his receivers. On the Packers side, a bit disappointing. You're still missing Devontae Adams, and now their center, Corey Lindsey, is not practicing, which certainly will hurt the Packers offense as well. Look, this one, no play as of yet, because I think we just want to kind of wait. We're certainly leaning towards the Chiefs side, but we do want that Pat Mahomes news to filter down and trickle down and hopefully push this line a bit higher once everyone knows that Pat Mahomes is completely out of this one. Another way that I would lean would be the under in this one. Packers completely have a great defense, and I think they'll be looking to run the ball against the Chiefs because the Chiefs cannot stop the run, so that'll chew clock as well. So if I was going to lean away in this one, I would be leaning under 48 as well, but we're probably going to reassess what the line and the total are doing maybe on Monday morning and then release some bets at that stage.
Yeah, I must have kind of misunderstood the read on this game in that when Pat Mahomes had that dislocated kneecap, I thought it was common knowledge that he was going to be out like a month, and I heard early prognosis anywhere from 2 to 6 weeks.
Yeah,
I didn't hear that news that he actually showed up at practice and was taking snaps and stuff, and then throwing doubt that he could play.
Yeah, he looked good.
I thought even last week in Sunday Night Football, when they were looking ahead to this matchup, they were dejected. They thought there was no chance of Mahomes. And now, as you've said, the news, it's official. It's definitely not Mahomes. It's Matt Moore. And, Mahomes, what can you say about him? He's absolutely phenomenal. MVP last year. Could have been, back-to-back MVP this year. Still can if he doesn't miss much time. When you lose a guy of that caliber, sometimes you can't correct the line enough. It changes everything. You talk about how it can even affect your defense because they don't have that same confidence that they've got that player on their team that if they can get him the ball, he can do special things. So it's very hard. I mean, this line has adjusted a shitload. I mean, it's moved at least, 7 or 8 points from what it would have been if you had the Packers. The Packers coming into Arrowhead without Devontae Adams. I mean, this line would probably be minus 4 the other direction. Yeah. So then you're talking about closer to a 10-point adjustment. That's why we're saying we lean the Chiefs, because that's a huge line move and the Packers are not 100%. But the public's going to look at this and say Sunday Night Football, Aaron Rodgers versus Matt Moore, the form that he's in. They're going to want to bet Aaron Rodgers. So that's one other reason why we'll sit back and see where this line falls. We may not even post a play on our app until an hour and a half before kickoff on, Australian time, Monday morning, when we see where the market moves. But I don't have a huge amount of faith in the Chiefs' defense. I think you're right. I think with Aaron Jones, they will run the ball a lot against them. And of course, the way the Packers have played this year, and they've got a better defense than they've had in past years, they probably do come in and get the win. So wait and see. One other factor, Andy Reid is like a mad scientist off a bye. Right. I think best record straight up and against the spread after a bye. Now, this is not off a bye, but off a Thursday night game. You get 10 days to prepare. That does factor in, and I think he will come in with a game plan. He's especially, smart, offensive-minded. He'll come in with a game plan that Matt Moore can execute. So I'm not going to rule out the Chiefs, for that reason. That's why if we do end up taking the Chiefs plus 4.5 or better, they will have a chance.
Yeah, absolutely. And as Jacob said, if we do release one, it'll be Monday morning. So make sure you have downloaded the Tripod app because that's the only place that we will be posting those ones, especially late best bets like that. What a shitty Tuesday game that we have. It's the Dolphins plus 14 points at the Steelers. 43.5 points is the total. Well, the Dolphins, they're kind of a little bit more fun to watch now with Fitzpatrick under center. The guy is a dead set madman. He doesn't care. And it's like, I bet the Dolphins... It's funny, like, the Dolphins obviously want to tank and get a number 1 draft pick, but I feel like Fitzpatrick is like the wrong quarterback almost if you want to tank, because the guy is crazy. He's trying 100% every time. He like rushed for like a 10-yard touchdown last week, like lowering his shoulder and shit. Like, just does not care at all. Only cares about winning, which is horrible if you're trying to tank. But look, the Dolphins are pretty bad. But the Steelers have been average at best as well. But they're coming off the bye here. I think that's going to give them a bit to regroup. They're at home. So, you know, I definitely see the Steelers winning this one. But I am not, there's no way I'm about to lay 14 points. I get that the Steelers defense is above average, but their offense has been, you know, pretty average, especially in recent weeks. So I can't see the Steelers actually scoring a ton of points here. So if I was going to lean anyway, it would probably be taking the 14 or the 14.5 points with the Dolphins. But, you know, I just would not feel great about it.
You talk about how well Fitzpatrick has played, but it doesn't matter when they keep on trying to deplete the roster around him. And even they've got a really good cornerback in Xavier Howard, and he's been a healthy scratch 2 weeks in a row. It's like, how blatant do you want to make it that you want to give your team no chance to win?
Yeah.
Whereas the Steelers, you know, said they've been bad on offense and they haven't been impressive. But let's not forget, like, you know, played Pats in week 1. You know, no offense looks good. Then what? Big Ben got injured in week 2.
Ben,
They've played at 49ers, which at the time we didn't realize how fierce the 49ers defense was. And I think that was Mason Rudolph's first start as well. Yes. And then Mason Rudolph got concussed in a game against the Ravens, and this Duck Hodges guy that, you know, has no business being a starting QB came in. And then they actually had an impressive win against the Chargers, but the Chargers are, you know, a dumpster fire at the moment. But what is consistent, though, is the effort out of the Steelers. Yep. And we talked about this before. Trading next year's first-round pick for Minkah Fitzpatrick, that's bolstering this year's team, and that's saying we don't think we're going to finish with a terrible record, and that pick's not going to be super valuable next year. There's faith in this team, and there's effort. And, well, I think they're fighting. And, you know, Tomlin's never had a losing season. We've seen a couple of good performances. As I said, they're up 24-0 against the Chargers on Monday night or Sunday night before a comeback. They destroyed the Bengals. Look, they'll easily come out here and destroy the Dolphins as well. But 2 touchdowns is pretty hefty. And you do wonder, a team like the Dolphins is still players that were, you know, the best college players that got drafted that have NFL contracts. And this is about the only game, surely, at least I hope for everyone's sake, the only time the Dolphins will be on national TV. So you do wonder if they at least put in a big effort. Like, it was interesting against the Bills. They had them sweating. We talked about that before. Yeah. They had a third quarter lead, and they're doing shit. Like, they did a fake field goal that worked and stuff. So that's actually the sign of a team that the players and the coach are trying, even if front office is doing everything, putting them in a position to fail.
Yes.
So it's an ugly game. You probably don't even need to watch it. At this point, we don't have any bet, unfortunately. I'd love to give you a bet on a shitty game to make it exciting.
Yeah, and we might.
We couldn't even find one yet. We'll see what happens.
You know the funny thing? It's probably the best play is probably the under on this one. And imagine, like, you're watching one of the worst games of the season in prime time and you're betting on the under. That's not a fun day.
No.
That is it, guys. That'll do it for week 8, looking to bounce back from last week. So that was 15 best bets, I believe. Obviously, as always, make sure you are in our Facebook group. There should be a link in the description to this video. Make sure you've downloaded the Tripod app. That's where we'll release. I'll type all these bets up, obviously, and post them in there. But we'll also give out some multis. Cash the last NFL multi, as we said, at $8. So hopefully keep that one rolling. But, certainly enjoy your weekend, guys. It's going to be Cox Plate. I'll probably throw up a racing thread in a couple of minutes after this pod. So, a lot of sport on this weekend. Anything you wanted to add, Jacob, before we get out of here on the weekend?
Hey, yeah, just the same as you said, big weekend of sport. I mean, All Blacks England in the Rugby World Cup semi-final. That's prime time, like 6 or 7 p.m. here. You can bet on that. There'll be a thread. We can put up a thread for that in our group as well. And even Rugby League, there's a test match. Great Britain are playing... Tonga tomorrow? Yep. No, tonight. Sorry, or the Savo.
I think, yeah.
Yeah, Aussie time, like Saturday night in New Zealand. And if we find any value on that, we'll share that in our group too. Of course, the Kangaroos played last night, and we had a thread going for that, and they were too good for New Zealand. But yeah, so you got Rugby League as well, which is our favourite sport above all. And as I mentioned, the high stakes Rugby World Cup match too.
Basketball.
Oh yeah,
is
there's
back.
NBA going on as we speak. So it's all happening where you want to be to get amongst the action and to not miss any tip is on the app and in the group.
Yeah, definitely. And there has been people absolutely crushing the NBA to start the season in the app and in the group. So make sure you're in there. But thank you once again, guys, for taking time out of your Saturday to tune in to us. And we've finished pretty much just on time, so you can go and have a bet on some NBA and on some horse races. So thanks again, guys. We'll catch you next weekend, Saturday at 10 a.m. See you then.